Anything But Politics podcast.
Welcome back.
Rivals need to know who is on the podcast today.
Hey guys, I am Liverpool Chef Lionel here.
Hey. Thanks for coming on, Chef Lionel.
No, I appreciate y'all having me over here. It's heavy on. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Hell yeah.
I guess we'll get right into it.
Right on.
So you've been, I guess in the cooking industry for a while. You said I saw you've been at the Italian restaurant since you were 16. How exactly, what was your passion for getting into the cooking industry?
So my passion started off with my parents.
Okay.
Growing up, we're a big Hispanic family. We were the central house that all of our family members and everyone came to conjugate towards. And so I grew up every Friday and Saturday having over 10 people over, my mom and dad cooking, entertaining everyone. So I really grew up with that environment. And more importantly, I knew what a good meal, and when I say good meal, it's not necessarily a really good tasting meal, just a meal made with love. Like whenever you see your grandma cooking in the kitchen, your mom, your dad, whenever you see them put in those hours into cooking those homemade meals you grew up on, it really brings people together. And so that's where my passion really came up on. And then we grew up eating Hispanic food, but whenever at a young age, my dad started working at an Italian restaurant in Corpus Christi. And that's what really opened up horizons to other types of food and kind of being just more adventurous with eating other types of food.
Chef Lionel, something I've heard you talk about is Southern hospitality. Can you kind of talk our listeners through what I guess that is to you and how it did affect your upbringing? Obviously, having these big dinners with so many people.
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever asked anyone to explain Southern hospitality, so I'm going to try to explain this as best as possible. So Southern hospitality, raised in the South. To me, the definition of Southern hospitality is if you go to someone's house and you lose your shirt, and the owner of the house or the host of the house will give you their own shirt, regardless if they have another one or not. So to me, that's like a prime example of Southern hospitality. But I was just raised with that concept of always treating your guests, making sure they feel very welcome. Until they disrespect you, but you always first treat them with the utmost respect.
So
example.
Yeah, that was an amazing example. So I guess, Chef Lionel, let's go back prior, obviously, to where you are now and how much you've accomplished. So let's go back to your very first job in a kitchen. What did you learn from that you, I guess, you still use with you today? And how did it prepare you as life of a chef, as life of someone who feeds a handful of people?
Gotcha. So so basically what you asked is what I got from my first experience of cooking and how I'm using that right now. Is that correct?
Yeah. And just your first job experience, not being with your dad, being in a restaurant kind of atmosphere as well.
Gotcha. So the one thing I remember from my first time ever working at a restaurant without my dad is a rush. And that's just the rush at 7 p.m. Doesn't matter what day it is, just a line of cars coming in. My first food job was actually at a fruteria, which is where they cut up fresh fruits and they make fruit cups out of them. And even at that little stand, by 7 p.m. on a Monday, Tuesday, whatever day it was, you get without missing a beat, you'll have 7 or 8 cars lined up right there. And it's so much anxiety. It's so much hard work. I hated it. I'm still not used to a rush right now when it's not prepared correctly. That's the one thing I hate. So what I brought from that experience, those rushes come about whenever you're not prepared correctly. So the way to avoid a rush is just to be staffed properly and be prepared properly. So I always try to be prepared as best as possible to avoid that feeling of a rush.
But Chef Lionel, at the same time, though, would you agree that dealing with that rush and seeing that sense of urgency amongst the people coming to the restaurant, did that teach you how to deal with pressure?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You have to, you're going to have 20 tickets come. You have 20 tickets in a line and you're barely at your second ticket. And the prepared big box of pasta falls on the floor. And you got to make more pasta, which is going to put you back another 20 more minutes. You learn to work under pressure. And most importantly, one thing I learned from as being a personal chef is not showing that not showing that you are under that much pressure. Because whenever you're showing that much pressure, you really push off that energy onto your client's house, and they get that kind of feeling, and it makes them uneasy.
Totally.
Chef Lionel, before I guess we get into your current role with being a chef for Liver King, you said you were previously a private chef for other people, and I saw the picture of you and Brett Favre. Were you a chef for him, or was that just a one-time thing?
So all of my dinners before Liver King is a one-time thing. I was a personal chef, and so the main difference between a personal chef and a private chef is that a personal chef, well, what I did was I cooked primarily for special occasion dinners. So people hired me out for birthdays, wedding celebrations, proposals, 10-year anniversaries, so on and so forth. Yeah. So an average customer or a really good customer, Liver King was the number one customer, by the way, they would hire me once a quarter. And that was a lot for me because they will only hire me for special occasions. The average customer would hire me one time a year because it was for a special occasion. And so like that's primarily what I did. And so with that, I cooked for a lot of people. Brett Favre is part of that category. There's also Marcus Camby, Hilary Swank, what's it called? And there's like there's a lot of athletes and everything else. So I cooked for a lot of people. Brett Favre was one of those people. He's actually part of a hunting group that I would cook for up in the north. And so they would fly me. They would bring me out there for 2 or 3 nights to cook at their lodge, and I would make them whatever they would hunt, or I would bring my own food and cook for them whenever they were done hunting.
And Chef Lionel, just to clarify, you're currently based out of Houston, Texas, correct?
Correct.
So most of these people that you're dealing with are Houston-based, or do you travel throughout the state of Texas, or even farther than that?
When I first started, I would travel a lot. You can ask my wife. Whenever we first started dating, whenever I first started, there would be times where I was getting my feet on the ground, building up my clientele. So it was really difficult for me to say no. People would call me from Austin for a dinner that I will make only $300 for the night. And I would drive 2.5 hours over there, cook for them, 2.5 hours back that same night. And so that was pretty constant when I first started doing this full time at 2014. But I would say after 2019, I wasn't in that position where I couldn't say no. So I was able to be picky, stay close, and only travel for big dinners or dinners that made it worth it.
So you got to a point in your career where at what point in your career did it become easy for you to say no to people because you knew that you had the long-lasting relationships?
2020, I would say. Yeah, right before 2020, right before the pandemic, that's whenever Netflix had hired me for Hilary Swank and her husband to cook for them. Like that was at that point where I realized like I don't have to travel anymore, and I had just had a kid also, so it worked out perfectly.
Nice.
Then after that pandemic hit, I really had I told my wife, I was like, I might have to get a real big boy job. Like I don't know how this pandemic's going to affect me, but for my business, the pandemic, as soon as I came back into working, I was able to be booked up 7 days a week if I wanted to.
And in your head, when you were thinking big boy job, does that mean, like, in your eyes, does that mean you're the head chef in a main kitchen? I mean, what would a big boy job be considered?
Big boy job would be me actually having a solid salary and working under someone, whether that someone's a person or a corporation, like a big restaurant.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I guess continue.
That was it.
Oh, I guess that leads to my next question is, I guess, how and when did you meet Liver King?
I met Liver King. It said 2016, but looking back on our emails, I think it's more 2017. And Liver King had contacted me. I was advertising at a small time website at the time. And Liver King contacted me, and it was actually between me and another chef that contacted him at first. We were talking. He decided to bring me on. It was for his company party at Essential Supplements. And at the time, Essential Supplements was like 3 people. And so it was really small. It was a quarterly meeting, just him and those 4 people. That's whenever he first found me. And actually, when I first approached Liver King, this was before he was on social media. He's like, they call me Liver King because liver is king. And that's like the one thing that I still remember from him because it still resonates today. I'm sure everyone understands that. And
With that being said, when you met him, was he the this Brian Johnson he speaks of, or was he Liver King?
He was Liver King at that point. He still referred to himself
Okay.
as Brian Johnson, but he had explained to me, it was like, we eat raw liver for, and he would name off so many words I never really understood, but for nutritional value and everything else. And then my first thought was, well, why do you need meat? I cook stuff. It's like, well, we eat really good cooked food also. We're just very strict on what we put in our bodies. Like, all right, cool, let's do it.
Were you familiar with that raw food lifestyle? Have you been around it at all, or did you know like what I guess in a sense what you were getting yourself into?
Yes and no. Like, so he would, those first few times that I cooked for him, he would handle the raw stuff because they eat the raw liver like very specifically for nutritional value. I didn't really deal with that, but they would bring in testicles. I remember there being liver to cook, some kidneys to cook, and heart also. Growing up, we didn't have much money, so the organ meat was actually a big part of our diet growing up because those are the pieces that the butcher would just either throw away or sell for really, really cheap. So I grew up eating organs and cooking organs also with my parents.
Gotcha.
So I guess when did you start like working for him full time then?
I'd say last year.
Last year. And are you cooking
Yeah.
7 days a week for him?
Not 7 days a week. I'm over there 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week, depending on if we need to slaughter a cow or needs more meat. But anywhere between 4 to 5 days a week. And obviously, whenever we travel, then if we're traveling for 7 days, got to be there for 7 days, regardless. But I'm there 4 days a week. I have one true like day off. And that's Sunday, and that's like the day that my wife and I like really, as long as we're both off, we're like relaxed. We'll take our son somewhere. Like we have that family time. And then Monday and Thursdays are my other days off, but those are more of a work from home days. Like those are the days where I'm getting together the big proteins for the Saturday dinners, coming up with ideas, getting all my eggs lined up for that Saturday dinner. Because those Saturday dinners, a lot goes into those. I
Yeah.
don't like people don't.
Yeah.
A lot goes into those.
And wait, so you just mentioned that when you travel with the family, that you're there the time they're there. What is your travel schedule looking like currently?
I wish I knew. There's times where we go to Las Vegas and on a Friday, and they'll tell me that Thursday, like, hey, we're going to Las Vegas this weekend. Are you able to make it? We really need you here, so on and so forth. And then fortunately, my wife's a trooper in terms of like just handling these schedule changes as well. And majority of the time, we're able to make it work. It's not always easy, but yeah, we make it work. And but yeah, the travel schedule is basically whenever they travel, and a lot of times whenever we do have travel plans, like they change very often.
And
Sorry, Evan, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when Liver King did hire you, how many followers did he have at the time, and did he kind of explain to you what like his plans were in terms of social media growth?
So it was really weird.
Okay.
To be completely honest, because like when I first started working with Liver King, he wasn't on social media or anything else. And I remember at one point, his sons and friends were having a camp at their house to learn how to wake surf. And they hired me for 5 days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 5 days for the children. And at this time, like they had just brought in a personal assistant, estate manager, and all these crews, like they hired on full time. And but yeah, we were talking. He wasn't. This was right before he got into. It was right before he got into social media. And then I feel like after that, like 4 months later, he hired me again, and it was just like, oh yeah, we're hiring you, but we need a food stylist. We have a film crew coming in, so we need this, we need this, we need a salmon with eggs in there, we need this. Like, this is cool. This is really fun. Like and I want to point this out. The main reason that was never a private chef. Like a private chef is a chef who cooks for one particular person. I've had offers, like really good offers, but I get really bored because once you start cooking for someone for 2 weeks, it gets very repetitive, and you're not so much a chef consultant. You're like a worker. So you're like, hey, you got to be done with this and whatnot. So, and I've expressed that to Liver King many times before. He understands the way I work and my creativity, how important that is. And whenever he made me the offer, it was very important for him to say, like, you have creative freedom, and we're going to work with you. And everything that he's been doing, like everything I saw, is like, I can't get bored with this. Like, this is going to be really fun.
No, that's great.
But, Chef Lionel, something I want to do for a second. I want to sidetrack for a second towards Liver King's life. So obviously none of this stuff obviously comes cheap. What did Liver King do professionally prior to him becoming Liver King?
So there's his bread and butter company that's Essential Supplements, and so that what they do is they get like the organs of the animals, particularly cows, bovine, and what they'll do is they'll get the liver, they put it into powder form, they'll freeze dry it, and then put it into capsules, and that's all those capsules are. Very pure, no BS around it, and that is his company. That's his bread and butter company. And it's my understanding he has a few other companies as well. I don't know exactly what they are at the top of my head, but one of them is the King, and so on and so forth. So those are the companies that he has, and that's his bread and butter. That's what he had before social media, and that's what he has right now.
Gotcha. So I guess let's go into a typical workday. Let's say it's a Wednesday morning. You get in there around 8 a.m. What are you cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And how does the preparation work throughout the day?
I don't even get up at 8 a.m. I'm a night owl. But what's it called again? But a typical work day, for instance, for tomorrow's gonna be seafood day. So one day a week they do like seafood. They like having the sardines with the bones and skins in there or whatnot. But I usually get up at 8:30 a.m., get my son ready for school, drop him off. I'll stop by a few, get some small ingredients at Whole Foods if I need to or anything else. And then I get to Liver King's house anywhere between 10 a.m. to 11:30, depending on what the menu is and what I got to do. From there, the Liver King chef, one thing I realize is not just a chef. You're managing a lot of things. You're taking on a lot of projects, especially with filming and everything else. So when I get there, the first thing that I do is I stop by the office space, and we have our staff working there, putting our camera guys. We run through ideas, what we're going with today, what we need styling from the kitchen perspective, whether it's going to be testicles hanging in the scrotum still or something like that. So I can start getting those ready. Not just getting them ready, but making them safe to eat also. They have raw organs and everything else. We don't just get these from any, I take the utmost precautions to make sure that they don't get any sickness or anything else like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the first.
Can you just talk us through that real quick? The preparation in terms of making sure that it is safe to eat, and what are you assuring when you're doing this? Like what on like the testicle or liver could be like toxic?
Yeah. So first and foremost, we got to make sure that the cow that you're getting it from is healthy. If you get a sick cow, you are what you eat. If you get a cow that's eating processed food its whole life, has loaded up with antibiotics or hormones to help it grow, I wouldn't let him eat that raw. So if it's from his own ranch, which we know everything is maintained and I handle everything, he'll eat it right away. He'll eat it fresh from there. But if it's from someone else, even if they're a reputable ranch, we don't know like what cross contamination there is in there. So we treat it like sushi. And by that, what we mean is we'll freeze it for at least 2 weeks. We'll take it out, cut it out, and we thaw it out right before he eats it. And so, we take the same precautions as you would sushi.
Nice. Okay, that's good to know.
I had a question also about his farm livestock. How many animals are on the farm, and how often are you guys having to slaughter one to, eat for that weekend, or do you dry age it? How does that work?
Yeah. So on the farm, right now we have primarily cows, goats. We have hogs, and we have like the typical wildlife also: bobcats, coyotes, armadillos, everything. Excuse me. Coyotes, all the critters on there as well. And so for the cows, we'll slaughter one either every month or every 2 months, depending on how big the cow is. If it's a calf, then every month. If it's a larger cow, like 18 months or so, then that'll last us for 2 to 3 months. So it just depends.
Okay. So Chef Lionel, something I've seen on his page, which is just crazy to me. I've never tried it. How does it work when you guys are cooking things like bobcat? Because I see these big cats you guys got torched up, and like it looks delicious, but that's definitely not like your typical thing.
It's not delicious. These are predators. These are games. These are we have bobcats, coyotes, stuff like that. We're not gonna do a coyote soon because people are gonna see that coyote head and think it's a dog. But with predators that run around a lot, that rely on these things, they usually have very gamey meat and very tough. So whenever we're actually preparing the bobcat, like armadillo, for instance, my great uncle cooked armadillo. we soak that in coconut milk for 2 days to get out some of that, to ease some of that flavor. With Bobcat, I remember rubbing it with like a lot of spices, make mustard, salt, pepper. I think I used the most spices I ever used on there. It made it taste tolerable, but it was still really tough. And with the Bobcat, we do grill it. We put it over a bed of water to keep some moisture in there to try to keep it moist as possible. But even at that, didn't help out too much.
But like you said, you are what you eat. And considering these like quick, nimble, and strong animals, does the family still take it down?
They'll still take it. Like they'll still take it down. They'll eat a little bit of it, not much. They can't eat everything. Nothing goes to waste. We have 4 large dogs that eat much better than I do, as good as a family as well. So whatever they don't eat, whether it's like intestines or something else, we just give to the dog.
I gotcha.
Dogs. And so yeah. But go ahead.
How often are you trying or eating anything that you cook for them?
I eat everything I cook for them. Not necessarily as full meals, but tasting everything. Every chef you meet, every good chef you meet, you taste everything that you cook, or even if one of your cooks are cooking. So there's nothing that Liver King has eaten that I haven't eaten.
So sorry, Merrick, what are your thoughts on raw testicles?
Raw testicles are my favorite organ, raw. Those are going to be, if you've ever had, and you're Northeast, so you might be familiar with this, raw clams. It has that texture and flavor of raw clams.
Love
that's
raw clams.
So when I first tried raw testicles, that's what reminded me of. That's whenever I came up with testicle ceviche. I was like, let's try it out like this. They loved it.
Yeah, because we are big meat eaters. So like with the stuff you cook is definitely, fascinating to watch. I was always curious like how raw testicles did taste.
Yeah, so raw clams are my favorite. My least favorite is definitely going to be kidneys. That tastes like piss. And then raw liver, if it's partially frozen, it has a great consistency, but it's going to taste exactly like liver. Like you're not going to get away from that flavor.
I wasn't a big fan of liver when I had it.
Yeah, and especially if it's fully thawed out, the texture just gets to you.
Yeah.
Wait, so Chef Lionel, when it comes to like all this stuff raw, how does it differ if you were to put it on the grill or pan sear it? Like whether that be testicle, liver, or kidney, does it change the flavor or taste all that much?
It depends. So with liver, for instance, if you cook it, it's going to have the same flavor, just a much different texture. Testicles, the testicles, when you eat it raw, it tastes like clams, have a texture of clams. If you cook them, it's going to have a texture kind of like chicken liver, but not fully chicken, like a very subtle chicken liver, but to have a texture more of gizzards. So flavor of chicken liver, texture of gizzards, kind of. Kidney, unless you cook it for 5 hours, it's going to taste like piss regardless. And then what's it called again? And then spleen tastes better cooked, definitely. And yeah. Sorry about that.
So where does most of this meat come from? Like, for example, the Bobcat, is Liver King and like maybe his sons or wife, are they hunting themselves? They have hunters on site. Like, where does this meat physically come from?
Like one thing that a lot of people don't understand is like Liver King is very well off. And so he has a few properties. One of them is Liver King Ranch. And in Liver King Ranch, we have that fully staffed. We have one of the best ranchers out there, best ranch hands, and then hunters out there as well. So in maintaining Liver King Ranch, of getting the cattle, properly raised, properly fed, just everything very healthy. Chickens also, coyotes, bobcats are always going after the chickens and the baby animals as well. So whenever the ranch hand, I usually to the ranchers, like whenever y'all get anything at all trapped that y'all just plan on throwing away, don't throw it away. We have a big fridge, put it in there, and then let me know. And then I'll take a look at it. If it's something we could possibly use, we'll definitely use it. If it's nothing we could use, then we'll either feed the other animals with it, whether it be livestock or predators over there, or we'll break it up for the dogs.
So like you said, literally nothing goes to waste.
Yeah, that we try to eat everything. If we have it on there, it's like, might as well try it out. If they don't like it, or if there's no way, if I feel like I can't make this appetizing, then we just won't even try it later on. But we'll try everything at least once.
Cool.
Chef Lionel, let's talk about the Christmas tree that you torched for Christmas. What was the kind of the preparation in something like that?
Yeah, so with the Saturday dinners, like I said, a lot of stuff goes into those, and the most difficult thing that goes into Saturday dinners is just creativity. I remember I had that idea 2 days before that Saturday, and in order to make it work, what we did is we got the chicken wire fence, we made a molding of the Christmas tree, and then we got some grass-fed brisket, and we sliced that brisket thin enough to where we don't need too much, but not too thin to where you can see through it, and we just started lining them up, lining them up, lining them up. And what actually happened was we used about 30 pounds of brisket for that Christmas tree. Toward the end, it was so much weight that it started collapsing, and so we had to like find a way to structurally hold it together on the inside. So that was how that went. That probably took about 4 hours total from making the skeleton of it and then cutting it and decorating everything.
And when you are decorating it, like, is Liver King helping you, or is it just you and some of like the camera guys?
It's me, the camera guys. I always have my sous chef, Chef Idris, and then at that time I had two helpers that time. And usually for Saturday dinners, I'll at least have two helpers with me.
Gotcha. Wait, so
Yeah.
Chef Lionel, something I'm curious about, kind of going back just to touch on the social media aspect of everything. Did you know that, like, I guess when you got hired there and you started working with Liver King and family, that here we are 5-6 years later, you be in this role with just over 70,000 followers on Instagram. I guess in a lot of ways, like a key figure to Liver King's Instagram account with the promos and the camaraderie, and like just you guys just like have some iconic sayings. Like, how did this all come about? Like,
I still pinch myself.
You get stopped like when you're out in public ever. People are like, hey, like you're Liver King Chef Lionel. And if that happens, what is your reaction?
I'm still getting used to it. It's still very new to me. And to answer your question, no, like, whenever I never came into being a personal chef to be where I am right now. Like, that was never part of my plan. But it just happened. I let it happen. And so, yeah, I wasn't expecting this at all.
Like,
at
this point in time, you're definitely like up there with like the most noticeable, most like in a way famous private chefs in the United States. And you probably never saw yourself in this position when you first started off, correct?
No, not at all. I was a little kid. I think I started off in 2011 officially, and that was whenever I would advertise off of Craigslist, and I charged $90 plus ingredient costs. I think my first dinner that I ever did, I brought home $110. And that was me going over there cooking for two people, 4-course meal on Valentine's Day, spending $40 on ingredients. And so that's how I started off. I was a hobby, honestly. I was never expecting this to turn into a career. And then in 2014, just decided to try it out as a career. And thankfully, it was never easy. I was able to build up my reputation, make good food, and just get better each dinner. That was always my goal. Make the next dinner better than the last dinner.
Did Liver King, I guess, in the middle of this process, he like, hey, like Lionel, like we got to get you on Instagram. Like, trust me, like there's so much upside for you. Or did you just kind of already have it and it came organically?
Leading up to Liver King asking me to be Liver King chef, I would say from 2018 on, he would hire me like 4 times a year, sometimes more. And then leading up to that, every other time I would cook for him, he would walk me out. He would tip me really well. And he was just like, I really want to work with you. I want to find a way to work with you. I want to find a way to get you up here. I like you a lot. So he has always taken care of me. He's always taken care of me. Yeah, if that makes sense. He has always taken care of me in that sense. And then, so whenever there was one particular dinner, it was him, Liver Queen, and 2 of his friends. They hired me to cook. I knew that he had been doing this social media stuff. And I was like, hey, I want to take care of your menu. I want to cook what I'm going to cook. I know what y'all like. I know how y'all eat, and I know what you've been doing. Just like, let me take care of y'all. Y'all just hang out, relax, and just trust me. He was like, yeah, for sure. I remember I made him some traditional barbacoa using the whole head, some bone marrow, risotto. And those are the 2 main things that I made for him. And then some other stuff as well. I remember that same weekend, my wife me and my wife and son, we're out on vacation, just like in the pool, and he messages me just like that got 5 million views on I got 5 million views. Let's do this every Saturday. I want to book y'all every Saturday going forward. And so after that, the next time I went over there, we met, we came with an agreement. And then 3 months later, it's like, I need you here full time. I need you here 3 days a week as opposed to that Saturday. Let's make contract. And so that's how that happened.
That's
What was your reaction to that?
At first, of course, I loved it because of my original reaction was definitely yes. This is fun. And I know that if going into this, him hiring me every Saturday is not going to get boring because of everything that we're doing. But I don't think I've ever mentioned this publicly, but I never went in there with the intention of being Liver King chef just because of my, they worked out a lot and everything else. And all my energy goes into creativity and food. I do work out, I stay healthy and everything else, but not to the extent they did. So it was never, I always thought I was gonna be like a background guy making these delicious food and like gnarly looking food and putting it on camera. I'd never really intended being in front of the camera. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your guys' creativity is just amazing. I love the one that was just posted of you coming out of the water with those crabs and lobsters on the table.
I almost died. I almost died in that one, by the way.
Yeah.
Like whenever that was a scuba diving thing. I had the idea the night before.
Yeah.
Like, all right, what can we do? I was talking to my wife. It was that Thursday before that Saturday. It was like, I don't have any big proteins this Saturday. I need some help. And we're like brainstorming. It's like, well, crawfish season just came up. It's like, okay, Liver King crawfish, lobsters. Do you want to do lobsters? We're gonna do it. We'll be at the ranch. It's like, I remember it was a Thursday night before that Saturday. I was like, I forgot what I was watching. It was like some Looney Tunes or something with my son. And then it was like a scuba diving. I was like, I didn't get a scuba suit. I'm going to find it. I texted the camera guy. He's like, I love it. Get it done. When I went to go rent it, the scuba diving guy was like, are you certified? He's like, no. He's like, I can't sell you the tank. He's like, here's what we're doing. I showed him. He's like, we're a filming company. He's like, you work with Liver King? He's like, yes, I'm Liver King chef. I was like, let me go. I'll be right back. He's like, I can send it to you, but we can't put any air in there. And you got to sign this waiver. And you have to promise me that you're not going to be in deep waters. Like, it's 1 foot deep. It's all for show. Don't worry. And you can't breathe in that thing. With the air out, you can't breathe at all. And so I remember I like dove in there. That thing is heavy AF. And then I remember I was like, I got the swimsuit too small. So it was like restricting my chest. So like that was like, it was giving me claustrophobia that I never knew I had. And then aside from that, like trying to swim, like getting those shots of me swimming and everything else takes a lot out of you. Yeah. And then I remember climbing up that ladder, doing the presentation. We did like 4 presentations. I messed up on all of them because I was like having so much anxiety and like I just had so much going on. I remember we were starting the dinner and I was like, I need 30 minutes. And he's like, well, we're hungry. I was like, Chef, you just asked us, I need 30 minutes. Like, just leave me alone. And they walked away. I remember I sat there for 30 minutes, unzipped myself, and I was just like staring. But that was the closest that I'd ever been to an anxiety attack. Just because like how constricted I was. I wasn't able to breathe. And yeah, like that one was that was interesting.
Not many people know what goes on behind the camera.
Wow. Like sick people. Like we're starting to post more behind the scene footage just so people like, here's what's going on. Here's the stuff that happens. You know, there's plenty of times where everything smacks a bottle and like something falls off the food. And then it's like, hey guys, that was our main dish for dinner. So we're gonna have sides for dinner tonight. So like stuff like that. Like we'll be posting more and more because a lot of that stuff does happen.
Yeah.
Stefan, would you say at this point in time, let's try to put a ratio together. Let's say your job is 70% chef. Would you say it's fair to say it's 30% content creator, or what would you have that ratio at?
Right now, yeah, I think that's actually a perfect ratio, like 70% chef, 30% content creator. I really need to get to where I'm like 40% chef, 60% content creator. It's because like the chefs there, you know, we have Liver King got me a sous chef, as a bunch of our sous chefs. So that's very helpful. We're working with him to kind of make these meals for them during the week, and that way I could like focus on. I was like, hey guys, you can have an idea, you can have a great idea, but executing the idea is in a whole other level. Getting that swimsuit was 3 hours out of my way, driving somewhere, talking to someone, convincing them to let me rent out a scuba gear without having actually be certified. Like there's a lot of other stuff that goes into content creating. So ideally, I would need to be like a 40% chef, 60% content creator.
What do you think takes up more time?
For me, what takes up a lot of time is just cooking. I mean, I'm the hardest critic. I'm the hardest critic of myself in terms of food. So if something's not perfect, it's not up to par. Like I'm gonna obsess over it a lot more than I should. So definitely cooking just takes up a lot of time. And content creating, like it's right now, I'm like going more the funny route. Being funny isn't so difficult, but whenever I start getting more into like the more elaborate scenes, the more elaborate cooking, that's a lot more setup. And just the light itself is like a 2 hour setup for me who has little no experience with lights.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, wait,
Lighting.
You go, keep going.
okay. I was just gonna say, something that I'm curious about when you guys travel. Obviously, at the ranch, you have your setup. You're familiar with the kitchen. You're familiar with the whereabouts. When you do go on the road, whether you're in like Vegas, Miami, New York, London, wherever, when you are tasked with preparing a meal for the family and you're not familiar with the kitchen space, how does that kind of change things? And is the kitchen space always like different? Is it like a apartment kitchen, like a chef's kitchen, a restaurant kitchen? How would you describe that?
But two things with me are two things that answer. A, I was a personal chef before. Every Friday and Saturday was a different kitchen. There are little to no kitchens that surprise me to this point. I've been in every type of scenario. So that's not necessarily an issue. The majority of times that whenever we do travel, they say the penthouses, so that I'm at the disposal of what the penthouse has, or I'm at the mercy of what the penthouse has. Fortunately, whenever we do travel, like my main thing is to get ready, style up their breakfast, get ready the raw organs. Because whenever I don't travel with them, he usually gets sick eating the raw organs or having someone else prepare raw organs. And whenever we do go eat, like we'll go eat whenever we do go eat, they eat from the order food from the hotel. And me and the personal assistant will actually work with the hotel. We'll get in contact with the chefs. We'll say, here's what they eat. Absolutely no seed oils, no gluten, no sugar at all. Like, please send me what you have. Here's what we request. And can you please tell me everything that goes into that? And so that's what we do now whenever we travel. Whenever we did cook, like with Will Tennyson video, like with that one, at first the stovetop didn't work. And then the stainless steel pans requested didn't come till after the dinner. So I cooked everything on one small pan and a pressure cooker.
Wow.
Cool. Wait, I have something I want to hear more about. It's become mainstream over the last year or two. Talk to us more about seed oils.
Seed oils. So I'll talk to you as much as I'm able to talk to you about nutrition. I'm primarily a chef, so I'm gonna go with that. But to my understanding, the seed oils cause have inflammatory traits and not the best for you. That's as far as I know. I like olive oil. I can tell you this with respect to the olive oil. I can tell you the best seed oil to cook in. If you do want to cook a seed oil, grapeseed oil, by the way, stay away from canola oil, stay away from vegetable oil. Those are usually the worst ones. And then if you do want to use avocado oil, that one technically, from what I heard, is not a seed oil. It just splatters a lot more. It's a lot less viscous. So you burn yourself whenever you're flipping your protein and you get burns on your arms right here.
That's so funny you say that. I was cooking brats earlier, pan seared, and I used the avocado oil, and it was splattering all over the place.
Yeah, it's a lot less viscous. It is healthy, but like getting used to that, flipping your protein, especially the larger proteins like a burger, a brat or something, is gonna make it splatter a lot more.
Yeah, I got the arm thing, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And does olive oil have seed oils? It does not. I didn't hear what you said there.
Olive oil usually doesn't have seed oils. Olive oil is one of those things where you have to source it correctly.
Okay.
There's all these, because traditionally the quote unquote, they would say the mafia will control the olive oil trade in Italy. So sometimes it will be mixed in with half grapeseed oil, half olive oil. So it wouldn't be a true olive oil, but an olive oil, like a 100% olive oil, that has a good source, is not going to be seed oil. But you shouldn't cook with it at a high heat. That's whenever it starts becoming inflammatory.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And something else I'm curious about, when it comes to meals that you are cooking and preparing for the family, what percent of them are not being documented or captured on camera?
That's a good question. I would say the only thing that's not being documented sometimes like the carbs. There's times where we just don't where if we have a lot of food on the table already and the carbs are there, but it's like it doesn't look right on there, or just taking up too much room, then we'll take those out. But it's usually just the carbs the or the ground organs. Every Tuesday they eat ground organs, which is just 1 pound of ground organs, 2 pounds of beef, cooked in a pressure cooker, refrigerated overnight, and they eat that just cold, like pizza. And they use that mainly for nutrition. So sometimes we won't include those either.
There's never times where you're just like, maybe one of the sons wants eggs and bacon for breakfast, and that kind of stuff doesn't get documented.
The sons eat breakfast. It's funny because like I always ask the sons this also. It's like, hey, like, is there anything that you ever miss? Like, if you miss anything, let me know, and I'll make you your version of it. And they grew up with this. They don't remember like eating McDonald's or anything else. Like to them, this is what they eat, and they don't really crave anything else, or they don't really crave anything else. Honestly, like there's not, yeah.
Because they eat like goddamn kings, so more power to them.
I mean, like yes and no, but like they're very nutritional conscious. So like there's times where like because they eat the raw liver, raw bone marrow with their dinners also, and there's like they like there's like really small to where they just like swallow it, and like there's times like hey like if you don't feel like eating it, just let me know and I'll throw it away. Like if you want to take a day off, it's like no, I need. I was like no, like I need to eat this. Like I really want to get some nutrition in me. So it's weird, but like they're still like they're really disciplined to that. Because I know if that were me as a teenager, I was like, yeah, get it away, give me a burger.
Yeah, so, that's awesome to hear.
Chef Lionel, I want to go back to like the crawfish that you had. Like they obviously aren't cooked. That's not coming from the ranch, right? You got to get that at a butcher or somewhere.
Yeah. No, yeah, those are lobsters. I got them from lobsters I could primarily get from anywhere because those are always caught wild.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, there's no farm raised lobster, and so we got that from a local store.
Do they eat anything farm raised?
Besides their own, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as it's 100% grass fed, no antibiotics or anything else, they're game to eat it. I'm trying to think if there's anything that they have that they refuse. They're skeptical. They won't eat pig all the time. So they'll eat pig as long as it's raised correctly. But if it's like they won't eat it like more than once a week. They try to stay away from that.
So I guess I want to ask some fun stuff then. Like, what's like the craziest thing that you think that you've ever cooked?
The craziest thing that I think I've ever cooked, probably the armadillo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the armadillo. Just some of those gamey meats, and those gamey meats are gonna be the armadillo, the beaver, and the rats. Yeah, the rats.
I don't like that. I don't like rats.
How are you cooking that?
So with that, we skinned it. I remember I grilled some just to make them look really gnarly.
Yeah.
And then I grilled some to make it look really gnarly. And then there were other ones that like I actually steamed, sauteed them, made them into stir fry, and those are the ones they ate. And they still had like a really gamey taste to them, but they were more tolerable because like one thing people got to realize is like what we show. If I were to cut the rats up, make them into stir fry, and display that, people will not at all know that they're rats.
Yeah.
So what we usually do is we'll save some of them and we'll just like put it quickly on the grill, put it for presentation, because we want to make sure that in those minute or minute and a half, people are going to know without a doubt, it's like those are rats.
And
they're eating that.
What's the longest, I guess, you've had to cook something?
Oh, the cow. That was like a 12-hour process. I remember that one I picked up the barbecue. I had to pick up a custom barbecue as well. We had to rent one out. We got there at 3 a.m. We started the fire, got it warm by 3:45, put the cow in, cooked it for 4 hours, wrapped it up, and then cooked it for the other 8 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, low temperature. But that one was definitely the longest one. And even the setup, like, after we got it smoking, we when you get the tents, the chairs, and just the whole setup also.
So what is your go-to way to let's say just make like a 20-ounce bone and ribeye? How are you preparing and cooking that?
Texas. So just like salt, pepper, maybe. If you're cooking it outside, you want to cook it over the open grill. If it's too marbled, like A5, then you want to cook it off the fire. If you're cooking it inside, like on the cast iron, what I would do is, what I would do, because I would do this when I would cook clients, I would caramelize the onions on the cast iron, take off the onions, then use that same pan to cook the ribeye. And that's going to add some flavor without covering up the flavor of the ribeye.
And then if you're cooking it on the grill outside, you keep the cover open, you don't close it?
Depends how thick it is. If it's a thick one, like more than a 1.25 thick, then you could close it if you want. So you would give it a quick sear, 2 minutes or 3 minutes, then close it and wait for it to get to temperature. But if it's a really thin one, you don't want to close it, especially if you're trying to get like a medium rare medium. That's just like a quick minute or 2 minutes, depending how thick it is.
On a high heat?
High heat, yeah, because you want that good sear.
Yeah.
You want that good sear. That good sear like really captures in some of those juices and that flavor in there also.
Awesome. You're making me hungry.
Making myself hungry.
Wait, so Chef Lionel, I guess at this point in your career, it seems like you've seen just about everything in the kitchen. In your head, just off your first thought, is there anything you haven't seen in the kitchen that you're like, oh, I haven't seen that yet?
Good question. Like so far, no, but again, I hadn't really think of something that I haven't seen yet. But yeah, I haven't seen a fight in the kitchen, like a fist fight.
Yeah.
We gotta start a fight club next.
Chef Lionel, before Liver King, were you used to really cutting up these animals and really the meat process of cooking?
Yes, I was a butcher. I worked for a butcher for a while, and whenever you're cooking for a real like foodie, not upscale foodie, but like just foodie person. So the difference is like what I consider upscale foodie is that they don't want any bones in their food, and then like a foodie like a foodie like I am, I guess, is I want, to me, bones add flavor towards it. I don't care how it looks. Like I want a great experience, and those were my type of clientele majority of the time. And so it really elevates the experience where if I'm cooking a fish, for instance, a snapper for 10 people, I could either have the fillets neatly cut, or I could get the 30 minutes before, bring out a 10-pound snapper, fillet it in front of them, debone it, show them how fresh it is, skin it, and people always ask questions and everything else. So it was pretty common. It wasn't just a snapper; it was like the whole leg of the cow, or the ribs of a cow, and that was pretty common for me. Like it just added value to the dinner in general, or just the overall experience.
And would you say that you have more fun cooking for meat eaters than vegetarians?
It's all the same. Like
in
terms of fun. It's in terms of fun.
Okay.
Because it's both a challenge. Meat eaters not so much anymore because I have a lot of experience with that. But even if I were cooking for vegetarians or vegan, that's just a whole other experience or a whole other avenue that I will need to learn. And I'm all for learning different ways of cooking.
So I guess then my next question is do you eat similar to Liver King, or do you incorporate vegetables?
We incorporate vegetables. Like my wife and son, we still like vegetables and everything else. I will say that ever since working with Liver King full time, I have gone slightly more carnivorous. So it's not, I don't eat as many vegetables as we used to, but we still eat them here.
Okay. Do you eat a lot of fruit as well?
Yes. Yeah, fruit right now, strawberries, peaches. Peach season's coming in Texas. Can't wait for that. And then watermelon also. Watermelon season.
I love watermelon.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, but go ahead.
I was just wondering, 2 questions, is how far your commute is to Liver King's place, and then do they also eat fruit? Because I don't know if I've seen much fruit on the social media.
Yeah, so we the commute from my house to his house, his main house is 1 hour. To the ranch is an hour and a half, and to the beach house is an hour and a half.
Okay.
And that's 4 times a week you're making that commute.
Oh yeah. I have a lot of time listening to podcasts and stuff like that. So
Awesome.
That's a good way to use your time. Continue to learn while you're commuting. So, I guess something I'm curious about before we kind of wrap this up. On a weekly basis, say you're going there 4 times. How much do you think you're spending weekly on food for the family?
That's a good question. It's a good question because now it's difficult because we raise a lot of food, but whenever we would like primarily buy everything with Whole Foods and everything else, like easily over $800 a week just on just ingredients. Like
Just on ingredients, not
dogs
even
alone,
including.
yeah, the dogs alone is $800 every 2 weeks. It's for the raw beef, and that's not including the organs or anything like that.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
there's a lot of meat, is right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That puts things into
Well,
perspective.
it's a lot of meat, but it's also like high quality meat. So it's not because the dogs also eat 100% grass fed also. So instead of it costing $3 something a pound, it's still like $9-10 a pound.
Wow.
Wait, so where outside of Houston are you located, and where are they located? I guess how far are you from one another? Obviously an hour, but in what direction?
I live in the city of Houston, so I live in Main Houston, near downtown
Okay,
Houston,
gotcha.
and they live
Gotcha.
up north, just north of the Woodlands.
Okay. So I think on the outside looking in, like we were prior to this call, a lot of people probably sense that you live with them and you spend a majority of your time there.
Just a big price, like yeah.
I kind of thought that. Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, every time I post, I'm always over there. I've been giving more people more insight into my home life and everything else. Like every other Monday, we'll have like my family dinners, one for my family, and kind of getting a glimpse of, hey, I don't live with everything, or I have my own life. Like here I am.
But there have been days that you've spent the night there, or no?
So whenever, not over there, because not at their house, because they turn off the electricity at I think 9 p.m. Yeah, to stop EMF radiation and everything else. They turn off all the electricity and everything else. So whenever I do have to travel, like to their, when I have to stay overnight in Huntsville, whatever, I usually get an Airbnb that they'll take care of.
Okay.
Gotcha. So I guess Chef Lionel, here we are. Summer's approaching. Summer 2023. What do you plan for this rest of the year, and what do you look to achieve in the next year that you maybe haven't yet?
I really want to tell this. And we were talking about this earlier. I really want to tell more of the story of the food. So, like for instance, there's a lot of food that we were cooking, and people really see it whenever it's finished on the display, but they don't see the cooking process. And part of the cooking process, what I love doing is just like cooking it the way that the culture I cooked it. So, for instance, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. One of the examples that I had was smelly salmon head. It's a traditional Alaskan dish where they bury the salmon head underneath the ground for 3 weeks, and they bring it out. It smells really bad. You know, it smells really bad. It's fermented, and they eat it. And if I were to put that on the table by itself, people would just see like a dirty salmon head and not think much of it. But if you see the story of how it's made, how it was like underneath the ground for 3 weeks, properly ventilated and everything else, then that's a lot more appealing. Or that says a lot more. That tells a much better coherent story about the head itself and the culture that it came in before refrigeration, ways to preserve, and everything else. So I really want to tell that story of the food, not just the finished product of the food. And that's going to be my goal for this coming year.
I love that. And how do you plan on bringing that into fruition?
Just recording myself more often. It's really difficult whenever you're cooking 4 or 5 dishes at once to remember to record. My wife tells me all the time, that, hey, you should have recorded this, you should have recorded this. Like, I missed it. Like, I should have recorded it. So it's just like getting better at remembering. I got to record myself. Hey, I gotta document this. I got to document this. Like, it's very important for me to bring the story out and really just show people is like, hey, we're not just cooking food to get views. Like, here's this culture we got it from. Like, we aren't cooking food to get views, but like, we're cooking the food to represent this culture, my culture, some other culture from around the world.
And at any point in your life, do you anticipate or see yourself maybe writing or creating a cookbook?
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I think that once I get enough recipes, like because there's some recipes that I cook that are just bad. They look really cool, but they're bad. So I want to make sure that I have enough really great recipes that I do expect people to eat. I'm not going to put a recipe that looks really cool but tastes really bad and put on a recipe book. I wouldn't let myself do that. But that is
Cool.
that is in the future.
Awesome.
And I guess I'll finish it off with what are some like specific life lessons or knowledge that you would tell someone for starting a career as being a chef?
If you want to go in a career being a chef, I always tell people, don't start off your first step going to culinary school. Start off by working at a restaurant because you might work at a restaurant, you might experience that first year of rushes and just realize that you never want to do this in your life again. Or if you go to culinary school, you invest, $40,000 and X amount of years in a culinary school, and then we actually work in the kitchen and realize that you hate doing this because of the rush. Then, you wasted all that money and experience. So I always tell people, if you do want to go that route, start off by working in the kitchen, make sure it's right for you before you go all in.
That's great.
It's tough. It's really tough. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I think anyone that's listening that wants to maybe pursue that route, that's definitely great insight. Maybe I guess not to waste not only your money but your time, which is ultimately your most valuable asset. So,
Right.
Chef Lionel, this has been amazing having you on the podcast, man. We know you're extremely busy, so we appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming on the Everything But Politics podcast.
No, I appreciate it. No, I really appreciate y'all having me on. Yeah, y'all been great. Great question, by the way. Great conversation.
Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much, Chef Lionel. We look forward to staying in touch.
All right,
Awesome.
Primals. See you
All
next
right,
week.
catch y'all later.
Peace.
There we go.